Very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Saturday morning. I hope you're all having a half decent weekend. Now, I do keep saying I'll try not to do transfer stories, and then I get really dragged into it. Look, there's still well over 2 weeks to go before the summer transfer window is officially open. Fans are already beginning to feel a sense of deja vu with the transfer rumours being bandied around. When we see the words, here we go, on social media, we kind of get an expectation. We kind of get excited that a deal is done and dusted. But sometimes that isn't always the case. And as I'm always told, the deal is not a deal until that contract has been crucially signed. And that's what seems to have happened for now with the report that the deal for the 28-year-old Brazilian defender Fabrizio Bruno seems to have fallen through. Now, apparently, that deal is not dead in the water just yet, but it will be a surprise if it does materialize. So we hear now of yet another Brazilian deal looming, and I'm filled with a sense of, I really hope this happens, coupled with I don't know whether I want to believe this or not feeling. But here I am again, like the gullible mug that I am, with a glass half full, providing you with yet another report on a player that we're apparently about to sign pretty imminently. And this is going to be a bit of a scout report and the details of the deal that's going to happen on Brazilian Wonderkid, Luis Guilherme. I've been looking it up. I've tried to make sure I've pronounced it correctly in the Portuguese way rather than the Spanish way. And apparently it's Guilherme. Okay, you might correct me there. So who is he? What do we know about him? And what's he likely to bring to West Ham United? Well, we know that Tim Steidten is out again in Brazil trying to finalise deals, initially with Wesley Gasova. That seems to have gone a bit quiet. And having been Steidten, he's not out there just to get one deal done. He's out there to get a couple of deals done. As I've mentioned, he's still probably trying to persuade Bruno to come to West Ham United if they're going to agree some personal terms. As you've already heard, Bruno's wife is pregnant, and they're looking for a substantial fee in order for, or substantial salary in order for Bruno to be persuaded that he's worth upping sticks and coming over to England. So we'll see what happens with that. But the imagination of the imminent signing of Luis Guilherme has certainly gotten fans quite excited. So who is he? What does he do? What has he got to offer? Well, his full name is Luis Guilherme Lira dos Santos. He was born in Aracaju, in Brazil, on the 9th of February 2006. He turned 18 just under 4 months ago. He was spotted by Palmeiras scouts in 2017 at the age of 11 and was taken into their youth system. By June 2022, at the age of 18, he signed his first professional contract for the Brazilian club. And after making his senior debut for the club in April 2023, he's since signed an extended deal back in November, which now goes on until 2026. He's made 44 appearances, mainly coming off the subs bench and scoring just the one goal so far. Now, in October of last year, the Guardian newspaper suggested that Guilherme was one of the best players in the world to have been born in 2006. I don't know how they worked that out, but there you go. His contract extension back in November was clearly because of the interest in the player was growing. Liverpool have apparently created a huge scouting dossier on the player, and they were believed to be the front runners to get the player to sign before Tim Steidten came knocking on the door. And what Steidten does is what he does best. He has managed to persuade the player and his family that West Ham is the ideal place for where the player should be able to develop his career. It's pretty clear that coming to a club like West Ham is more likely for Guilherme to get more game time than somewhere like Liverpool. Now, he may not necessarily be a regular starter, but to come on as a supporting act for the likes of players like Kudus or Bowen will be ideal for him. And that's another reason why we're likely to get this over the line. At 18 years of age, Guilherme has got his whole career ahead of him. Even if he spends, say, 3 years at West Ham United, he'll still only be 21, maybe 22, and yet to hit his peak, where if he does do well, clubs from around Europe big clubs from around Europe will be bidding huge sums of money for him. Plus the fact that we've not only we haven't got Europe this season or this coming season, and for a player like him who's still developing, it's unlikely to bother him as much as say buying maybe Kudus. If we were buying Kudus this summer, he may have second thoughts because we're not in Europe. Whereas Guilherme is not likely to be thinking in that way. Now, what is the deal going to cost us? Well, it seems that we're signing a player for a fee of around £25 million with a huge amount of add-ons. Now, it's been reported in the past that he's worth anything up to around 40 odd million pounds. So how are we getting him so cheap? The huge add-ons, I dare say, are going to be a big factor. And there's going to be a hefty add-on fee to the £25 million that we're going to be spending, where we're going to agree to a 20% sell-on clause. So say, for argument's sake, if he becomes another £85 million player, then that'll be another 17 odd million pounds that we will have to pay Palmeiras for the player. Now, as it stands, I'm unaware of the length of contract or the salary, but I'm going to take an educated guess on what we currently have seen with other players, like, for example, the deals for Mohamed Kudus and Edson Alvarez. They both signed 5-year deals, with Kudus's contract including an option of a further year. So I'm going to wager that Guilherme will sign for the same period of time, 5 years, with a possible option of an extra year. Now, as for the salary, West Ham like to structure their salaries for younger players who mainly come through the academy system. But I would imagine Guilherme will have been offered something similar to a salary that would be circa the kind of salary that an academy player would expect, and that's likely to be something like £15,000 to £20,000 a week. Obviously, with bonuses for number of appearances, number of starts, number of goals scored, goal assists, and so on. It is the same structure that players like Declan Rice was on when he moved up from the academy to the senior team. And I dare say Guilherme's deal will be very, very similar. I would also imagine that Guilherme's contract will undoubtedly include a release clause. We know that Paqueta has got one. We know that Kudus' contract has got one. They both got release clauses of £85 million. So I'm going to wager that there will be a similar release clause to that kind of value, if not a lot more. Now, the release clause also for both Paqueta and for Kudus was not to be triggered until they've both spent a full 2 seasons at West Ham United. And again, I dare say that Guilherme's release clause will be similar. He'll probably have to be at the club for a full 2 years before anyone can trigger that release clause. Now, because if he does prove to be a success, there's going to be a queue of teams bidding for him to take the young player on. And 85 million it could be plus. It could be he might have a contract where he might be one of our first players ever to have £100 million release clause in his contract. So what do we know about him? Well, as I've mentioned before, he's made 44 appearances so far for Palmeiras, primarily from the subs bench. He's got a very decent disciplinary record, only a couple of bookings, no injuries to be concerned about, and he's also played at international level at under 16s, under 17s, and under 20s for Brazil. There's been a lot of talk about his Palmeiras teammates, Endrick and Estevao, but Guilherme is, in his own right, a star in the making. His profile, his playing psyche is said to be ready-made for European football. He's a technically gifted player, and despite his young age, he's got good on-field decision-making. He has electric pace, and is in one game in 2022, he clocked 36.4 kilometers an hour. His pace is likened to that of a very young Kylian Mbappe. He's an extremely versatile player who is capable of operating in multiple positions. Now, he primarily plays on the right side of attack, but he's adept at playing as a left winger, as a number 10, a number 8, and a second striker. Now, many fans will immediately be concerned by the fact that we have Mohamed Kudus and Jared Bowen operating from the right side of the attacking play. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't think Guilherme is going to be expecting to become a regular starter at West Ham United, and he's more likely to be. He's going to be learning his trade, but he's going to be learning directly off the back of the likes of Kudus and Bowen, and especially being in the Premier League. So I can see the logic in this contract because he's going to be a player that's not necessarily going to mind that we're not playing European football next season. He's going to be moved to the Premier League, one of the best seasons, one of the best leagues in Europe, and he's going to be learning his trade. So I don't think he's the type of player that will be coming in expecting to be a regular starter from the off. Plus, should we decide at any stage in the future, God forbid, to sell Jared Bowen or even Kudus, a season as an understudy for these types of players will do Guilherme no harm at all for his career development. And of course, he would be the sort of player that is likely to be the player to sort of take on that role in the future. He possesses an excellent strike of the ball um, from long range. And it's a surprise that he hasn't actually notched up more goals yet in his senior career. But I'm sure with the confidence and with the encouragement and under the coaching of the likes of Lopetegui, I dare say that those shots will soon be converted into goals. He likes to find space in pockets to receive the ball, and he has got great composure in the attacking third of the field. His pace in the Premier League is going to serve him well. He loves to take on players, and he's developing into a great ball carrier from midfield into attack. Now, despite being so young, he's already got good body strength. He's the sort of player that relishes a challenge. It enables him to ride challenges whilst in possession, and of course, being Brazilian, he's got the flair that you'd expect from an attacking player as well. He's most definitely one for the future, and it shows a clear shift for West Ham United in the way we're approaching our transfer window by going for such a young player, and especially for spending quite a sizable amount of our budget in transfers for one player. Look, we're told that our transfer budget is circa what anything from 90 to about 120 million pounds. I reckon it's at the top end of that. So spending 30 million or 25 million with add-ons is quite a considerable amount of money for a young player, 18-year-old who's yet to be proven in a top league. But it's the Steidten project. It's an exciting one, and I'm sure by the time this video comes out on Saturday morning, you may well have heard that the deal is finally done and dusted. Let's hope it's the right deal. Let's hope it actually comes to fruition and there's no last minute issues, just like the ones that we've had with Bruno. And we look forward to it. We look forward to seeing what else Tim Steidten has got up his sleeve. Look, if you're new to the channel, as I've said, please do hit the like button. Please do hit the subscribe button. And I will be back again very soon, I'm sure, with another transfer special. Thanks for watching and have a great week.